Just an update on these car projects. It's actually quite windy today, so there may be some crashing and banging of the garage door at the moment. But this is where I'm up to on the cars at the moment. The Austin 7, I have the rear lights mounted. You can see them there on their little stalks. Eventually those screws will have to be painted as well, but they look pretty good. If I could, I'd go outside and show the view from further back so you can see how they look, but the weather's not really playing ball for that today. But if we switch on the lights, they light up fairly well. I'm not quite sure. The way these lamps work is you've got one bulb at the bottom and two at the top. And some of the instructions I've read seem to indicate that the two at the top are the lights and the one at the bottom is the brake light. That seems a bit backwards to me. I would have thought you'd want the brake light to be the brighter of the two. It's easy enough for me to change that around because the lamps are actually wired in using sort of Lucas style bullet connectors, so I can just swap the wires around if I need to. But that's with the rear lights on. If you turn on the ignition, you can actually see what it's like with the brake lights on, because on an Austin 7 the way the brake switch works is it's actually actuated by the handbrake as well. Because the handbrake's on, you can see the lights there. Now, generally when I'm driving, even during the daytime, I'm not sure how much this car will get used at night realistically, because they are so small and hard to see. I prefer not to drive them at night time. It's hard enough to be seen during the day. And so in this car, I'll just turn the ignition off. Even in my MGB there, I tend to drive around everywhere with the headlights on, just to be more visible, because it's a low down car. People just don't see it, so I find having the lights on really helps. The Austin will be the same, so given those lights would be on most of the time, I want the brake lights to be a lot brighter. So that's the way I've got it at the moment. Like I say, I can swap it around if I really need to. Just turn the lights off. I haven't wired in the little front lamps there yet. It's just underneath the instrument panel there. I've actually got a battery cut-off switch, which I disconnect. The other thing I will do is, this is my number plate blank, and I'm thinking I'm going to mount that probably here on some sort of little standoffs, and I'll put a little lamp either in the tail here to shine onto the number plate, or I'll extend this just a little piece, make an actual blanking plate for it to fit to, with the lamp on the plate there. It'll be something like that. So the little number plate lamp that goes there, I may be able to use something similar to what you have on the MGB. I do have another one of those housings that I could fit there, but I'll see how that looks. On the Riley, I have been looking at mounting the front shock absorbers. That's these here. The bottom mount's easy enough. It just goes onto this little bracket, and it uses these special pins that fit through here. But when you look at this from the top, you can see that the lower one is kicked out slightly from the chassis rail here. So obviously this pin is too short, and that's what these unmachined versions are for. So what I need to do is machine these up. So machine this down and cut the thread on it with the right spacing in here to mount these correctly. And I believe what you need to do is you really want these to be as close to inline as vertically as you can. So you can see I've drawn a line there on the chassis rail, so that'll be mounted in there like that. and I had to do the same on the other side, of course. That'll mount in there like that. This shock absorber, I did actually find that the lower bush hole here hadn't been reamed out to the right size, so I actually had to buy a 9/16 reamer, which is what the diameter of this is, and then just ream that out to get that pin to slide in, because these are a nice sliding fit in there. So that was easily fixed. So now that I have that actually mounted, I only just did that today, I can now look at measuring the distance between these, which should hopefully be the same on both sides. It looks like it is. And then I can machine up those pins and thread the ends of them so they fit in the chassis rails correctly. The other thing I'm doing is working on the headlamps for the Austin 7. These came from my friend Ian, and I'd already bought the replacement reflectors for the other set of lamps I had, so it's easy enough for me to fit those into here. I just want to paint just the little base bit, just so it doesn't rust, basically. And some of the other parts are actually in a little toaster oven at the moment, just being baked. And the other thing I did is on Trade Me, an auction came up for basically a box of old SU carburetor bits, which also looks like it includes some SU fuel pumps. And I am going to need a low pressure SU pump for the Riley here. So the pump is normally mounted up on the firewall up here somewhere. So it's kind of a puller pump. It actually pulls from the tank rather than pushing from the tank, which is how a lot of the more modern cars are. So I'm really hoping that inside this box, in the picture it looked like there were some fuel pumps in there. So I'm really hoping there's a suitable one in there, or a few suitable ones I can take apart and rebuild to fit the Riley. So I'm going to open this up now and see what's inside it. I won't do that filming it because it's just too awkward. So I'll open it up and see what's in there. I unpacked the boxes, and it's quite a pile of stuff. There's definitely, what's that, 5 SU fuel pumps there. I haven't really had a close look at all of this yet to even tell what type they are. One's 6 volt by the looks of it. These are all going to need a good clean up to really know what they're all about. That one's a 12 volt one. So I'm really hoping that one of these will be suitable to use on the Riley. You can buy these new. I think they're about 350 New Zealand dollars each for the new ones. For all of this lot of stuff, it was $50 on Trade Me, plus another $44 for the courier to get it here, which may seem like a lot, but a lot of these SU parts you can still buy new from the SU people in the UK, and I knew it was worth paying that much money just for what looks like a pile of crap, because just as an example, these brass SU caps, a new one of these costs £13, which is about 26 New Zealand dollars, plus they want £15 postage from the UK just for that one brass cap. So the postage is really expensive at the moment. Actually, it was really expensive before all the dramas with diseases and things, but it just seems quite a lot to spend 30 New Zealand dollars to get that one little brass piece sent to you. So I knew there would be parts here that I could reuse, and it turns out to be better than I thought. So some of these carbs are no good for the sort of stuff I do, the vintage stuff, but a lot of these linkages and things you can reuse. This is a smaller carb. There would be parts in there I could reuse. The good thing is there are a couple of UBA carbs here. These would have come off Morris Minors, so these are 1 inch. Really for the Riley I need OM1s, but I've not seen any of those come up, which are 1 inch and 1/8, I think, diameter. So these are a little bit small. These are like the ones I've actually already restored, but it's just handy to have another set of these spare. They also came with a few extra float bowls, and these ones have the little pins on top, which my other set don't. So I can clean these up and make use of these tops on the set of carbs I've already rebuilt. Things like these little choke levers, these are all brass. They're very handy to have. You wouldn't reuse the throttle discs and things like that, but just these little linkages and levers and things are really handy. On the set I've rebuilt, one of these jet nuts is kind of quite mangled, so I'll be able to strip this down and rebuild it using the neater ones, which will be quite good. This carb, I'm not sure what it is. It looks like a little amyl type carb, but maybe it's off a small engine or a small motorcycle. Everything's so covered in dust and sawdust and cobwebs, I can't see any makers' names or anything on it, so I'll have to try and figure out what that is. What does it say? Well, it's a Mark II off whatever it is. Yeah, I'm not sure. DRCP? No idea. And I've also got no idea what these carbs are or what they're off. Again, I can't see any marks or anything on them. That one's loose, whatever it is. But things like this, these little universal ball connector things, these are really useful for throttle linkages and bits and pieces. And again, you can buy these new, but especially if you have to get them out of the UK, by the time you've paid for it and had it sent here, they really get quite expensive. There's a few of those on this one. Things like these little cable support things, little screw terminals that you put the cables through. That's my little car parts being baked. So this is all really actually very good, and like I say, I'm hoping I can find the right sort of fuel pump here and rebuild that. Yeah, it's tricky to tell. I've never done SU fuel pumps before, so that'll be interesting. But all in all, I think that was quite a good haul for what, 94 New Zealand dollars. So I'm pleased with that. I'll start cleaning stuff up and see what's actually there. I worked out what these three carbs are. These are Zenith carbs. Not sure what they would have been off. Still haven't figured out what this one is. I'm sure it's some sort of small engine carburetor. And with the fuel pumps, as far as I can tell, I've got 4 12-volt ones and 1 6-volt. And I believe these are all early low pressure pumps, which is what I want. There are various things apparently you can look at, like the thread on the little mounting studs there, things like that. This one still actually has a tag on it. It's still wired shut. I don't know if that tag is meant to have any numbers or anything on it. But the good thing is you can get a rebuild kit for these. I think I looked it up, the rebuild kit is £37 plus £30 postage to New Zealand. So all up, that's about $120, I think, with the exchange rate at the moment. So that's about half the cost of buying one of these new, and of course I'll get a proper vintage pump from it. So that box of bits was definitely well worth it. Like I say, I'll clean up the rest. I'll probably reuse some of the bits off these pre-war SUs just to tidy up my set that I've got, with nicer non-mangled gland nuts and things on it, and probably use the float bowl lids with the little tickler pins. But all in all, that was a really good purchase. I went ahead and cleaned up the earlier style fuel float bowl tops. This is the one that was on there, that I had on there, and these are known as T2 types, and you can tell by the sort of strange shape to this bit. These ones are earlier ones, and they're known as bullnose because they've got this rounded top on them, and they also have different lettering in the top. So these ones just say SU Carburetor Company Limited, Birmingham, whereas these ones, the earlier ones, well, it's a bit hard to see, actually say Adderley Park, which is where these were made before the war, I think. The history is all a bit strange, but you can read up about that online. So these are actually the earlier, probably more correct tops to use, with the little tickler button things here. All they do is push down the float bowl, I guess, so you can get a little bit of fuel in there. These cleaned up really well. I wire brushed them and put them in the ultrasonic cleaner, and luckily the T1s and the T2s are compatible in terms of the float valve and the needle setup inside there, so I was able to just swap all that over. So this is looking quite nice now. I also replaced the mangled nut on the bottom of the carburetor here with one of the ones from the new set of carbs. The other thing I found out was I cleaned this up a bit, and it's a Villiers carb. So this would have been off some sort of small engine. That'll probably look good up on the shelf there. And also, I wasn't paying close enough attention to all the parts I had here, because one of these carbs is a little bit rarer. So this is a downdraft SU. This is a D-type SU with a flange on it. And this is actually the same sort of carb that I've got in the Austin 7, except let me balance that there. So you can see, sort of see, these are almost identical, except the one I have here has the flange on it, whereas the other one doesn't have the flange. So also this one also has the earlier style fuel float bowl top with the little tickler valve on there. So this is really handy, because now I've basically got a spare carburetor for the Austin if I need it. So that's actually quite an amazing find. These D-type carbs are a lot rarer than the more common H-types and the H2s and H4s and whatever else there happens to be. I'm building up quite a collection of these old SUs now, and I also have this giant 2-inch SU, which I think would have come off some sort of Jaguar. I don't know what I'll ever use that for, but that all cleaned up quite nicely as well. So the rest of these will probably just go in the box until I need them. I do have the 2 spare UBA style carbs, and having the spare downdraft is that's actually worked out to be really, really good.